President Hollinger, Dean Laniak, faculty, staff, and coworkers, fellow students and graduates now, family and friends, I am very honored to be standing before you today. It is truly a joy, and as all the graduates can attest to, I am sure, it's been quite a journey to get to this day. God's story of calling is usually evident in our stories. And just like these other graduates, my journey getting to Gordon-Conwell and my time spent in seminary here has revealed that God's calling to disciple has much more to do with who He is than with who I am. As a teenager, I found myself feeling a call, and it was unexplainable. I had grown up as the kid who knew the least about the Bible out of all my church friends. They would name a character or a story, and I would have no clue what they were talking about. And yet, it was undeniable that God had some sort of a call on my life. And so I went to college trying to explore what this really meant. And I learned through a first experience with truly being discipled by my college minister, Stuart, that the part of God's calling is to live with grace and wisdom towards others. Another part of discovering God's calling on my life began as I looked for a seminary. I was really searching for one that would be vigorously biblical and yet in close touch with the modern culture, as Russell Conwell had said, and one that was undenominational and was a place of equipping men and women in practical religious work, as Adoniram Judson Gordon had said. As the quotes suggest, I found that place in Gordon-Conwell. So after my wife and I were married, we moved here to Charlotte with no jobs in a recession year. And with the support of family and, of course, with the hand of God, providing us jobs within a month of being here, again in a recession year. It was proving a point. It was imprinting a lesson on us about His calling, that this was truly much more about Him than it was about us. My time at Gordon-Conwell has only solidified this evidence of God's story of calling in my life as having much more to do with Him than it does with me. I think the first lesson God loves to teach all of us about calling is that it usually starts with the calling of love. And the first one of those is to love God. I found that loving God took the form of loving His Word in seminary. Yes, even His Word in Hebrew and in Greek. And in fact, it was as if I was studying it for the first time all over again when I began reading it in the original languages. My love just grew. I learned in seminary how deep His Word really is, and how it is so full of His love for us. My professors, several of them that were language professors, taught me how to study it, but they taught me how to enjoy it. They even taught us how to sing it, and to revel in the mysteries of God revealed in it and through it, and even those mysteries not revealed in it. Second, I felt a call to love others as a part of this calling. One experience that God used to imprint this into our lives as a calling to love others happened just a couple of years ago. It was just as much a classroom for God's work as the classrooms of the seminary. The lesson was a painful but important lesson about becoming like Christ. It happened when the one place we all feel should be a safe place, the local church, became the very place my wife and I no longer felt safe. This was when God solidified the gospel's call on our life and on my life. In the midst of my reputation being unjustly handled at the hands of those that I should have been able to trust, God called me not to react. I knew I could not seek revenge. I knew I had to learn this life lesson as hard as it was. I knew I had to love others even at the cost of pain and loss. And you want to know the ironic thing about it? I had just written a paper a year previous called Reputation Martyrdom, the call to die to ourselves as American Christians. So like a good pastor, in an attempt to conclude, I actually have 3 conclusions. My first is to the faculty and staff of Gordon-Conwell. Continue fulfilling God's call on your life and the life of this seminary to disciple others by teaching, assisting, challenging, and encouraging more seminary students to solidify their call in the midst of their time in seminary. For at least this seminary student standing before you, you have impacted my life and ministry forever, and I am very grateful. My second concluding remark is to my fellow graduates. People will need all of you, not just your degree. Now, your degree is a part of who you are now, but they will still need all of you more. Think about it. A counseling degree does not make someone a counselor any more than a divinity degree makes me divine. You can ask my family. Yes, you will share biblical insights. You will counsel people through tough crisis. And you may even use your Greek to teach someone a new word. But your correct translation of kephale, while it's important, is not what people will totally need. Of course, we all know that they really need Christ in you. Whether it's your spouse, your kids, your family, your clients, your congregants, they will all need all of you. Because your call is more about Him than it is about you. And finally, and I do mean finally, to family and friends, listen to the stories of these graduates. Take time to ask them to tell you their stories. I guarantee that they will reveal God's story of calling in their lives as well. And in hearing these stories, just as you've heard part of mine today, be encouraged in this. God is calling you too. He's calling you to make your life more about Him than it is about you, to disciple and to love. I will close by challenging us all to live out the mission statement of Gordon-Conwell, which is to advance Christ's kingdom in every sphere of life, to think theologically, to live biblically, and to engage globally. Thank you and God bless.
Good morning. When Hannah emailed me and told me that I had the opportunity to speak this morning, she said, "You have 3 minutes." And I thought to myself, clearly, she doesn't know me very well. And I also thought the timer would probably have to stop if I shed a tear or two. I'm someone who believes very deeply in the power of testimony, and I am honored this morning to share a little bit of mine. About 5 years ago, I started waking up in the middle of the night. I would toss and turn for 2 or 3 hours, and I had all these ideas in my head about things I wanted to write. And I wanted to hold on to these great ideas until morning so I can get them down to paper. And it started getting a little ridiculous, and I started telling a few people, I think I might need to write. And the consensus was the same, that I needed to do 2 things. First, I needed to get up and write when I would wake in the middle of the night. And I also needed to keep a pen and paper by my bed. I started to do both. Then I reached out to a dear friend and author, Karen Custis James, and I said, I think I might need to write. And she said, you need to come to this conference. It was a women's leadership and networking conference, and they were going to be talking a little bit about writing and publication. And I don't remember everything that was shared at that conference. I do remember 3 things that happened that changed my life. And one of them was Carolyn stood up and boldly said to all the women in the room, go to seminary. and I did not think that she was talking to me. I also remember speaking with her husband, Dr. Frank James, who was our former provost at Gordon-Conwell, as I attended a writer's workshop, and he said to me, "Natasha, you are a smart African-American woman, and you have a lot of important things to say, and we all need to hear it. Therefore, you need to be writing something every day." So I started to blog. Then I met a new friend who thought that my first attempt at an article was good enough, that she sent it to Christianity Today, and I received an email from them a couple of days later saying that they wanted to publish. And this began my journey to writing, and this began my journey to Gordon-Conwell. I did not know what to expect when I came to Gordon-Conwell, but I recall attending orientation. I was surprised and elated by the diversity of our students. There were men and women, people from different races and ethnicities and countries. There were people of all ages and people that were from different professional backgrounds and ministry experiences and people from different denominations. And I thought to myself, this is going to be a rich experience. And it was, especially as I started to meet people and hear their stories. And during orientation, two things people normally ask you. They say, what is your degree program? And the next question is, what do you plan to do with that degree after graduation? At the time, I was teaching women's Bible studies and leading women's small groups. And I applied to seminary because I just wanted to do that well. But I remember meeting two women on that day. And when I asked one of them what she planned to do with her seminary degree, she said, "I want to be a stay-at-home mom." And I said, "That's great." I met the other woman in the restroom, and we carried on a conversation as she pumped breast milk for her 2 or 3 week old baby. And I just recalled thinking to myself that I love God's call for women. I love discipling them. I believe that he has important work for women to do in his kingdom. And I knew that these women understood that their most important life's journey and work would be committing their relationship and their lives to the Lord. And they understood that their life and those that they impacted would be greatly enriched because of that devotion. The excitement of orientation quickly faded, however, when the hard work began. I took several classes, and we were required to read 2,000 pages of reading per class. I had responsibilities at home. I was active in church ministry. I was still working at the time. I spent the first semester ignoring my classmates. Every time I had a break, my face was firmly planted in a book. And when we had lunch breaks at school, I took a book and grabbed a sandwich and continued reading. I simply did not know how I was going to get all of that work done. But God, in his infinite wisdom, corrected me. It was as if he whispered, "Tasha, this experience cannot be about the grades." See, some of my behavior was rooted in pride. I thought I was smart once. Then I went to the Naval Academy, worked really hard, struggled the entire way academically, and graduated as a solid C student. So I came to Gordon-Conwell, and I thought, surely I can get an A in some Bible classes. That was before I took Old Testament on Simlink. And God reminded me that seminary needed to be about the journey and embracing the whole experience. And this was a matter of stewardship for me. And that's why I read every assigned book from cover to cover. And I internalized every assignment. And that's why I spent the rest of my lunch breaks having conversations and interacting with my classmates and my professors. And any aid that I got, it was because I loved the work. And I trusted that God would make a way for me to get it all done. And he did. Seminary has been a family endeavor. For every time that I came to a weekend course, I returned home to a clean house because my husband knows that I don't like a dirty house. And there was always dinner on the table. My daughter makes it clear to everyone that we are graduating and we are writing a book. And every time I finished reading a book or turned in an assignment or received a good grade, she would say, "Good job, Mama. I'm so proud of you." And I would sometimes feel bad because she would always want to have more play, and I would always have more work. But it was important to me, and it is important to me even today, for her to have a mama that lives out the gospel that we talk about. Even my husband started to look more tired as the days and weeks of graduation drew near. And he says to people, "We are about to graduate," and they look at him perplexed. And he says, "She's doing all the writing, but I have to read that stuff." This seminary journey was not all smooth sailing. In the last 3.5 years, we have lost some dear loved ones. And I had to learn how to grieve all of my previous losses. We've moved states, we've changed jobs, we've lost our home, we've lost almost all of our financial resources. And through it all, God reminded me that I could trust him in times of surplus, and I can trust him when there appeared to be drought. The enemy tried to destroy our marriage, and I fought for a long time, and I was so weary and broken, and I just wanted to give up. And God spoke a word to me even in that, and he says, "I have some things to teach you about grace and forgiveness and unconditional love and humility and bearing up under unjust suffering and sacrifice, because these are the things that I've done for you. And I'm going to transform you through this." And Gordon-Conwell was an integral part of that transformation. 2 days ago, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And tonight, we're going to party. This has been a transformative journey for me on so many levels. I've been encouraged to pursue the Lord and to delight in him. I've been encouraged to use my gifts and talents for God's good purposes. I've been encouraged to love and be loved well. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the faculty for making Gordon-Conwell a safe place for women and a safe place for me. And I want to thank my family and friends for their love and support and for coming today. I carry you with me wherever I go. And I want to thank God for his infinite love and favor and faithfulness towards me. And this is the same God that loves you. May you be blessed by him today.